Hi everybody, you're watching The Culture Cave. I'm Gabriella White and I'm here with Mr. Kinoshita. We are here in Nagasaki exploring the city and basically exploring an in-depth timeline of history which dates back to the 1600s, 1500s, 1600s, Portuguese. We've been talking about the Dutch history in particular, the British history here. We are now on the very famous Hollander, Hollander in Japanese, which is the Dutch slope. Now this is one of the most memorable places for foreign residents, isn't it?
Yes.
In fact, the Dutch were the first people who were allowed to reside and trade fully with Japan 400 years ago. And it was so rare for foreigners to be here at that point in time that all foreigners were called Hollandajin. All of them were called Dutch. So anyone who was not Japanese was called Dutch. When did that change?
That is because Dutch people stayed in Nagasaki for 200 years.
200 years.
So after that, English, British Thomas Glover came in 1859, and he started to build a house in Minami Yamate, the southern part of settlement. Still, we call that the road Dutch slope.
Yes.
Those Dutch slope, half of the foreigners are British and French.
So half of them were, hold on, half were French,
yeah,
half were British.
British.
What about the Dutch?
Very few.
Very few.
Very few after Dejima was closed.
Yes. Okay. So is it a bit of a myth? Is it a myth that it was called the Hollander slope when in actual fact it was mainly French and British here?
But we thought that Dutch people were more friendly to Nagasaki.
Dutch people were more friendly. Well,
history.
Historically.
Depends on the history.
It was an amiable connection when the Dutch came here, that's for sure. And we're actually going to now ascend the slope, which is very, very interesting. Now I was here yesterday actually visiting one of the houses which is closed today, but the inside of the house was actually the former dormitory of female residents of one of the local universities, right?
Kwasi.
Yes.
Women's College.
Women's College. Which women's college was that? What was the name of the women's college?
Kasui.
Kasui.
Kasui. It was constructed by American missionaries, Methodist missionaries.
Methodist missionary, I see. So here we start to see some of the European brickwork. Now, of course, we're on the island of Kyushu, so we have the subtropical climate. But I was on the inside of this building yesterday, which is very interesting. It's called the Western Style House, number 13, and we are currently in Higashi Yamate, and the sun is just starting to set over Nagasaki right now. And Mr. Kinoshita and I are now going to tell you a little bit about the history of this building, which we can just about see over the walls, which is... Now, there's an interesting history here which is connected to Dutch, British and French, isn't it?
Yes. Formerly in 1892, British.
Yes.
He was said to be a policeman working in the British consulate.
Yes.
His name was John Queen. And he acquired this property. By the way, Higashi Yamate number 13A, 13A is the name of the property.
This property
land
here.
Of the property.
Right.
13A.
Yes.
So this house is named after that number of properties.
Okay.
Name of the properties.
Right.
And it became a resident of Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
He was the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Nagasaki branch, the head general manager at the time. And later become a company residence of own Ringer company, which is one of the largest trader in Nagasaki City those
Yeah.
days.
Right.
And after that, in the early 20th century,
Yes.
a French, Mr. French acting consul,
Yes.
André Boucley,
Mhm.
acquired this land,
Yes.
and he married Japanese lady, Mrs. Katsuki,
His
and it was initiated by Mrs. Katsuki.
right.
And
Right.
after that, it became a property of Nagasaki City
Yeah.
in 2006,
Yeah.
and 2007
Yes.
registered as an important cultural asset of Japan.
Cultural asset of
Cultural asset of
Japan in
Japan.
2007. Right.
And Nagasaki no Kaze, that's a tour guide company, started to manage this property.
I understand. So going back to the 1930s to 50s, it was under the ownership of the French consulate, actually.
Yeah.
Now the inside of the building where I was yesterday is it's a typical Dutch house, basically very steep wooden staircases, and it really reminded me of my late grandparents' house in Amsterdam, actually. So it was very natsukashi, very nostalgic,
yes.
very nostalgic to visit. So we're standing now on the famous Dutch slope. Are there any other properties to see that you'd like to show me up here?
Yes, there is
Let's go.
another one.
Okay,
It is next to this building, that is number 12.
number 12. Okay,
Yes,
so,
number 12.
okay, so let's go and have a look at
This
this one.
slope leads to one of the earliest Protestant church
Is that
in
right?
Nagasaki.
Mhm.
So many Westerners walked up this slope.
Right, in the 1800s,
Right.
which simultaneously, of course,
And that,
was the Victorian time in England.
all right.
Yeah.
The building in the front is the number 12. Oh, it may be closed today also.
Ah, it's also closed.
It is,
Maybe because it's a Monday. Now, I have a question about the
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah.
This architecture is a mixture
mixture
of Dutch and Japanese.
Yeah,
So
look
Can you
at
tell
the
me
roof.
about that? Yes.
roof, kawara, that's tile.
The Kawara tiles.
Yeah, they are kawara tile.
Yeah.
But still you have chimneys
Yes.
for the fireplace,
Mhm.
and also the kind of windows,
Yeah.
Western style.
Western style.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a combination.
Yes.
The craftsman must be a Japanese who actually built, but the engineer was probably maybe British.
Right.
And this is the here is the very small.
Okay. So this is building 12. It was erected in 1868. It originally served as the Russian consulate and was later used as the American consulate and then a residence for missionaries belonging to the American Methodist Church. The original structure was a one-story house roofed with Japanese tiles, and it had a large veranda. In 1941, this building was donated to the Kwasei Gakuen, the school